And we are live.
Hello, viewers out there in YouTube world.
There aren't any. Ha! That's good. We don't want people listening to us.
Yes, we have an elite crowd that we cater to.
Yeah, we don't want too many people listening because that would just be sad. Sad. Okay. Oh no, people. I was going to do this before the stream, but then we got distracted looking for a book. Let me see.
I do want to, for the record, I want to make it known that I did not look for a book or even inquire about it.
Oh. You made me do it. You made me do it.
Forced you to do
methods fall apart.
Okay. I started playing it and I shouldn't have. Let's see. What am I trying to do here? Come on. Come on. Come on. You can do this. Okay. I don't know why that's not showing. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to play a little BimJob clip here. I just wanted people to, I just wanted this to go on his public record. This has to be this has to go down as one of the stupids. Okay, listen.
The dating methods fall apart because you extrapolate out. The further you extrapolate, the less you have access to veracity. You can do a dating like we always bring up the dog, right? There's a dog that it in its life from birth creates, in this case, potassium. It creates it in its body. It generates it from processes. You go, look at the dating method we're using. BBL says, look at the dating method we're using. We can do it with the dog. Why don't you believe it about the age of things out there? Well, and you go, well, because the age of the potassium in the dog corresponds directly to the age of the dog because the dog is the source of the potassium that's being generated.
Oh, okay. It just goes to show how dumb BimJob is.
I don't understand what point he's making now. Is there a potassium argon dating method?
The point he's making is that when you, there is, when you use a dating method, okay, what you're looking for is what the age was in the past, right? So put a point on a line 1 million years ago, okay, or 30 million years ago, okay? Now and then you go to the future and we have how much potassium, radioactive potassium is left in that thing, and we have this future point, right? So we're going back into the past. So the point he's making is that the dog and the potassium that the dog is creating are the same age, and we have access to both of them right now. Well, Jim Nub.
So he's thinking Jimmy, that we're aging or we're dating the potassium in the dog.
No, here's the point. Potassium is created in stars, not in dogs, BimJob. And basically, there's a certain amount of radioactive potassium today that's in the environment in general, and we're looking at basically how much is accumulated in an animal. And I don't know much about dating, but anyway, the stupidity there was that BimJob thinks potassium is created in the dog. And he's doing the same thing he does with, you have two extant species, chimpanzees and humans, and how can you go way back in the past and extrapolate? Well, if you have genetic testing, right, you're testing you and your cousin to see if you're related. You don't have access to grandpa because he's in the cemetery, and you can still tell that you and your cousin are related even though you don't have grandpa. You don't have grandpa's DNA. All you have is the comparison of what we do in the future. So what they're comparing is basically they do their best to figure out what the radioactive state of a thing is when it gets buried, or when it solidifies, right, or comes into one location. And then from there, they can use radiometric dating to extrapolate or calculate the age. And the extrapolation it works because physics is very regular and radioactive dating is regular. Anyway, that was just that one.
That's weird because actually what they're doing is they're measuring the ratio of potassium to argon in a sample. And that sample being used to date the dog might actually come from, I don't know if it comes from a rock or
the environment.
The environment around, like in a layer above or a layer below the whatever fossils found. So, if anything, he's done a poor job of explaining what he's trying to say.
Well, he harps on this all of the time. So it's that same thing. We have things that we currently observe or that you can test and observe in science. And we're going way back into the past and extrapolating, right? And yes, that's called inference, Jim Bob. That's how it's fucking done. And we do it not only at that macro schedule for historical things like geology and evolution, but we do it in scientific experiments. You basically, you mix two things, you know how much you have, and then you find, the compounds. But very often we don't have the source of it. Like in forensics, you don't have the murder happening in front of you, right? You have to infer, and we infer based on the regularity of nature. So it's not that big a thing, not that difficult to figure out. He goes on about that all the time. And of course, that's a historical science versus observational science. Hey, it's Command Cyborg. Managed to catch us alive. Hi. Hello, world. Anyway, so there's that one. And I got one more. Let's see. Oh, before I get done with that one, I want to mention that Curt Allen, Curt Allen, did a wonderful Substack post on this. Confidence is not evidence. An ethical examination of modern epistemic failure. And what he gets into is that Jim Bob stated that falsity with such confidence, and no one in his chat called him on it because he's the confident man bro leader of this group, right? And they're going to listen to anything he says and confirm it without thinking about it at all, without looking it up or double checking him or anything. They're just going to be, go, bro, you really smashed them, that sort of thing. And Curt talks about this basically an evolved trait that we have to live in social groups and to follow leaders. And you can see it in turkeys and you can see it in flocks of geese. They will follow a leader, and that leader gives off cues that make the others confident that the leader knows where he's going, and they just fall into line, right? That sort of thing. And Curt does a wonderful little blog on that. He calls it an epistemic signal. If others in the group, within those environments, social proof becomes a primary epistemic signal. If others in the group accept a claim, especially high status members, the safest move is often to accept it as well. So it's a safe move, basically. So
I think he gives them material from which to whistle in the darkness of their confusion and misinformation.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but it leads to something greater here. I got another clip here that does a little bit more.
Now, what I was getting at, like the material that gets dated by potassium argon, if he is even making a reference to potassium argon dating, it comes from volcanic material,
right?
Like material left behind in layers after a volcanic eruption. And so, if you have we'll say a dog or a dog-like animal found between two volcanic layers and using potassium argon dating, the top layer is 5 billion years old, the bottom layer is 7 million years old. We know what era what geologic stage that particular mammal came from.
Yeah. Yeah, we know the composition and how, and like I say, I don't know enough about radiometric dating, and I never will. But they work this out very carefully. They work out the initial composition of the lava flow, and then what happens to it over time. When you consolidate these radioactive materials into a solid, when it solidifies, it's stuck there, and now it's going to degrade or change into something else by the principle of the half-life, which is quantum mechanics. It's not something that we're guessing at, right? It's a fixed rate, this half-life thing. Anyway, so I got another clip here that gets into something similar, but yeah, I wanted to mention Curt Allen's post, and I put it in the description. Everybody can read it and follow him. Yeah, he's got some other really thoughtful posts, and I'm hoping that he and I are going to be having a conversation next week. So anyway, okay, so I got one more clip here. Oh, what is happening? So this is on Ayden Linden's channel, and I've linked his channel in the description. Go subscribe to him. He's only got 100 subs so far, and he's got some very interesting political commentary. And he's got one called BimJob. He didn't want to say RimJob, so called BimJob, which is kind of cool. Let's see. Why is chat replay showing? I don't want chat replay. There we go. Now we're on. Okay, listen to this.
Absolutely necessary, and here's why. We are looking for evidence of evolution.
He's reviewing a debate that BimJob did with PhD Tony.
It's in the title. Evolution is a process by which animals, plants, and other living organisms are transformed into different forms over successive generations.
Yes. Okay, he's right.
It's reasonable to expect to know what this process is claimed to be in order to establish whether or not there's evidence for it. Now, what we really...
Yes, it's reasonable to know what this process is, right? You see where he's going?
Really hear most of the time is things change. My proponent, my opponent tonight, he just argued in his opening, things change. He just assumed it, right? Yeah, that's the claim, things change. I want to know how it changed. How did it actually happen, right? Because this is a naturalist claim. This is about causal effects in nature, right? Right.
Okay, so that's enough of that. So you see what he's got there. He's claiming that we don't know how that change occurs. He's claiming that all of this mass of evolutionary biology. I mean, I've got how many papers I got? Like 3,000-4,000 papers on how it changed, on how it happens, right? Because he is so ignorant of science in general. I mean, he doesn't even believe in gravity, and he doesn't understand why the atmosphere sticks to the earth. And he's got just all kinds of horrible science in this guy's background. He's just ignorant. He's willfully ignorant, so that makes him an idiot, right? So he thinks that we know as much as he knows. That's what he's assuming. He's assuming that his opponent can't tell him how one species changes into another. So what if his opponent did know how one species changes to another, and he wanted to tell BimJob? How long do you think the debate would last? It would be, I'm guessing, several years before we even got started, before you could educate BimJob into the mechanism of evolution. And that's the problem. So it's really interesting that these creationists actually, and they say it over and over again, evolutionists don't know. They can't tell us how. They can't tell us how the liver evolved, or this evolved, or that evolved. They actually believe that we can't tell them, that we don't know anything. And the average person probably doesn't know. they rely on experts, right, who do know, but it is available to anyone. If you go out and do a search for how did this evolve on Google Scholar, you will be downloading papers until the cows come home, get old, die, turn into steaks. It'll be a long time before you're going. Anyway, lost my train. So those are my clips there, Scott. I made you silent. Oh, I made Scott silent. Hey, Benghazi. Maynard Says is here. And yeah, we got a few loyal people. He would lean. Yeah, he would. The problem is that he doesn't know enough to know how much he doesn't know. And that is a condition of the average fucking American these days. They just don't know enough to understand that there are things that they can't know and don't know, that they would have to work for years and years to understand. But the information is out there. And this is this whole cognitive thing that's going on. We're devolving educationally as a country because of this problem.
Right.
And my son was telling me today that teachers are saying that the kids are relying on AI, but they don't read, understand what AI is telling them. They just repeat it.
Yeah.
And that is the difference between using AI as a tool.
Well, it's like copying that smart kid's paper instead of doing the research yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, he couldn't name 3 branches of government. Asked him what was used, what mechanism was used so that the animals knew they could eat other animals after the fall of man. Yeah, what mechanism? I'd like to know what that mechanism was, because we're extrapolating way into the past on that one, aren't we? And what mechanism did God use to create a herd of elephants? Did he create a herd? Did he create like 2 elephants and then, rely on the Noah's Ark thing with 2 jumped? I don't know. Of course, they never want to talk about that. Anyway, so we are gathered here to talk about AIFly3r, AIFly3r, AIFly3r. He got clever. Anyway, so the first quote by Mr. Flyer is, Jesus Christ is alive. I don't know hope you guys can read this. Can you read that okay? Should I make it bigger? I could make it bigger. I could do that.
It might not hurt to make it bigger.
Oh, Vesta's here. Vesta Freya. Good. Wouldn't hurt.
It actually looks pretty good.
Does it? Okay,
Yeah.
You can read it. Okay. Jesus Christ is alive. Well, then why does he have to come back? I mean, okay, they put him on a cross and then he was dead, right? He was dead for 3 days, because that's what resurrection means, coming back from the dead. And then he went away again, and he's coming back. So how can he be alive? Where is he? I don't know.
Look at Austin Sims' statement right after, like 2 lines after that. Oh, actually 2 lines after that.
Do you think Jesus ever looked at Mary and asked, Mommy, where do babies come from? And then Joseph in the kitchen was like, yeah, Mary, where do they come from? Yeah, that's a good one.
When I was
in
seminary, we didn't talk about that very much in theology class.
Yeah. Yep.
What kind of kitchen table talk there was about where babies come from?
So then AIFly3r goes on a little rant here about we were talking about embryology. The embryo self-directs its own development. Not technically correct. No. Has its own DNA distinct from its mother. That is true. And if I left it to develop in a supportive environment, will follow an unbroken trajectory to adulthood. The supportive environment has to be the mother. And that's well, the other part isn't true either. Has its own DNA distinct from its mother. Yeah, the DNA is distinct from its mother, but it has its mother's mRNA and some of its father's mRNA. And the father's mRNA has to do with the extra embryonic development that creates the placenta. And the mother's mRNA works for a week or two in the embryo. So you're relying on a different DNA in the very early weeks of an embryo. It's a little more complicated. He's making a case for what is it? What do they call it? Life, pro-life. Is that what they call it? Yeah. Okay. If personhood depends on current functional capacity, no, it doesn't. Then people who are asleep in comas or severely cognitively impaired would also lack it, and most people find unacceptable throughout. Okay, so he's saying that if it depends on functional whatever, when you go to sleep, or if you're if you're knocked unconscious or whatever, then you don't have personhood anymore. And this is the misunderstanding of consciousness or the soul being the person. No, you're still the same organism. Even if you're constantly inputting and outputting little atoms here and there, you are the same structure for a while. If a tornado develops and moves across Kansas, it is the same tornado, even though the air at every minute in that tornado is completely exchanged with the ground air, right? It's still the same tornado. And this is where you get into identity things, you know, the ship of Theseus and all of that. And people have a lot of misunderstandings about what they are. I mean, we are a constantly changing thing, but our personhood depends on what is stored in our brain in episodic memory, right? And personality, and also stored in our body and our structure. So our entire history from when we were a zygote to where we are right now is in some fashion stored in us, and that is our personhood. And then when we die and we rot, we don't have personhood anymore. It goes away. And before we were born, we didn't have personhood. We have it, you know, because we are organisms. Let's see. Most theists, Austin says, most theists never develop any brain activity.
Hey, I need to
Just
take the
kidding.
dog outside real quick. He's making these
Okay.
glances at me. So just
wait.
keep talking.
Should I wait for you to come back, or what? I don't know what to do.
Just
Okay.
Talk to our live chat and talk about AIFly3r too. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. There's no stage where the organism breaks down and reassembles. Now that one right here, right there, that's patently false. A caterpillar completely breaks down and reassembles well after the egg is hatched. So we have metamorphosis in a lot of species. We have them in tadpoles to frogs, basically, where almost everything breaks down and reassembles into another kind. Now, if creationists did not know that caterpillars turned into butterflies, they would call those two different kinds, and they would insist that one could not possibly beget another. But this happens all the time, so that's bullshit. From fertilization onward, it's the same organism undergoing a seamless, self-directed process of growth and maturation. Yeah, that's how biological organisms work, but it's not seamless. There are seams at every second. You're constantly changing. Every time, like right now, while you're listening to my voice, I am changing your brain. There are changes being made in your hippocampus that will tonight end up in your cortex that will forever change you. So basically, you're interfacing with me over the internet, and you are being changed by that. We're always changing. Yet, we have this personhood, which is our structure, and that happens in natural nature all of the time. An oak tree for 400 or 500 years has a structure until it breaks down, or blows down, and then it starts to break down. So these little structures, tornadoes, hurricanes, things form. And they seem to have problems with understanding meteorology. So,
I've returned.
what do we got here? Okay, I was talking about, he said there's no stage where an organism breaks down and reassembles. Caterpillars and butterflies. Caterpillars almost break down completely and reassemble according to another body plan into butterflies.
Well,
So
I
we
think
know that can happen.
I think he's got a human-centered point of view. I think he only cares about the embryos of humans, doesn't care what happens with other types of life. And this is just adding verbiage to a, just kind of a simple idea I even had when I was a young fellow, is that it's one continuous process that's not uninterrupted. So therefore it's human from conception and will always be a human. So if it's a human that's going to be a person, it's a person now, is kind of what they're saying. But that's kind of pointless. It has nothing to do with the Ediacaran or the Cambrian. It's just him trying to start a talk. Him or her, I don't know who it is or what they are, but just trying to start a talk and derail the conversation and start to talk about abortion.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, a caterpillar turning into a butterfly is absolutely one kind changing into another. If a creationist who didn't know anything about caterpillars and butterflies saw those two things, he would say God created those two kinds, and one could not turn into another. A caterpillar could not beget a butterfly. That's what they would say. So we have proof in the lab that we can analyze today of one kind changing into another. So why couldn't it have happened in the past? You see what I'm saying, Scott? Especially with DNA changes. DNA changes would make it much more likely. But I mean, this thing does those two forms with the same set of DNA. It just makes epigenetic changes. God damn, something in my lungs. Anyway, so that's a really important point for creationists to think about one body plan changing into another body plan. Obviously, butterflies are not the same body plan as caterpillars. Well, in general, we would say they were insects, whatever. But yeah, cut in half and make 2 starfishes. Planaria too do that, and a few other animals. So Dr. Dave, Professor Dave, did a new video. I missed that one. I haven't turned on my YouTube today. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Cambrian here pretty soon. Let's see. There's no say. Calling it just cells is either trivially true of all living organisms and therefore irrelevant, or it's smuggling in an assumption that the entity isn't a real organism. I didn't say that at all. But it is interesting that at the very early stage, you were just a little tiny cluster of 8, 16, and 32 cells that were almost all identical, even though they were already changing a little bit amongst themselves. That's what I was saying. And I think it's highly relevant that we used to be a zygote. Anyway. So who, Laborious Cretin, who was he picking on today? Who was theirs? Dave is he's gotten really free at just totally jumping on people. Okay, now we're at the Ediacaran and the Cambrian. The jump from Ediacaran biota, soft-bodied, mostly simple organisms, to the Cambrian explosion, 540 to 530. Now the Cambrian explosion was like, anyway, we'll get to that. Is one of the biggest unsolved puzzles in evolutionary biology. No, it isn't. Not the biggest. It's actually a pretty simple one, and the reason that is something that we know less about is because it happened a billion years ago, or 600 million years ago, or whatever. And that makes it very difficult. And the other reason is that we didn't have a whole lot of bony skeletons that were fossilized. All we have is impressions in the mud. And from that, they've done, in the last 20 years, they've done a tremendous amount of work on it. And people that say this are repeating garbage that came from the 19th century. And it's ridiculous. Who's Professor Jiang? I don't know who that is.
Apparently he's some scientist or con man or something that Professor Dave is debunking. No,
I'll have to watch that. Cool.
Yeah, Dave Farina noticed that he always gets a bump in his viewership when he does these really ascorbic, whatever, debunks of different.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, you know, I might as well quit fighting it. And I assume he enjoys it because it's less prep time. So he's just doing more and more of that.
Yeah, and I noticed that a long time ago, back in the 80s with WrestleMania. Like I had all these relatives that were just absolutely, that's all they would talk about. And I'm like, why? It's the same thing. People love a good shit show. You know, shit shows are entertaining, I guess. So I don't know, who am I to judge? Anyway, bad predictive history channel. It's one of those guys, one of the archaeologists or whatever. Yeah. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Okay. This is why even secular paleontologists like Douglas Irwin and James Valentine acknowledge the Cambrian remains genuinely problematic. Well, where's that part? Let me see here.
And notice here, he doesn't really make a positive claim about anything. It's just trying to spread misinformation and disinformation in order to make believers like them say, oh, evolution bad, creation Bible good. And,
yeah.
And that's what it's for. It's not making any kind of positive statement.
Here's a 2013 book, and the 2013 book is about, let's take a look at the contents here. This is what he's cherry picking, is that it's problematic. And before the show, me and Scott searched for problematic in this, and they didn't ever say that the Cambrian in general is problematic. The geological context, the environmental context of the Ediacaran early Cambrian, record of early Metazoan evolution, the tree of life. And what they say is problematic is how we're, the phylogeny that we're trying to interpret from back 600 million years ago is very, very difficult. They have a lot of fights about this all the time, and they're always changing things. The origin and evolution of Metazoan ecosystems, the evolution of the Metazoan genome, and the Cambrian explosion, and ghostly ancestors and constructing. So this book is all about how to figure this out, right? This book isn't a couple of guys saying, oh no, we don't know how this worked. Oh no, the Cambrian explosion. We just have to throw up our hands. No, the whole goddamn book is about that. And there have been many other books written on the same topic and thousands of papers. And it's like, stop it. Stop lying to people based on some, what is that, appeal to authority? Secular paleontologist. Okay, a transition from single cell life to Ediacaran multicellular organisms itself has no clear evidential pathway. Well, that's what I'm showing you with the embryology. There is a clear evidential pathway, and there's a very good reason for all of that. You got some chat? I've got a chat GPT on this too, where I run this by chat GPT. If you could explain the Ediacaran, you still have to explain the Cambrian jump. Well, the Cambrian jump is pretty obvious, basically. And it wasn't a jump so much as it was a funnel. So the Cambrian became a funnel, and the Ediacaran was, let's try every goddamn body plan possible with these simple worm-like organisms. worm and feather-like organisms on they were benthic on a lot of them on the bottom of the ocean. And basically there was this explosion of all these different body plans. And then the Cambrian was a point where it became funneled down into the half dozen body plans we have now. And it's pretty obvious when you look at developmental evolutionary biology, how that happened. And we have a whole lot of information about the molecular basis of how that happens. We know this. That's why I keep harping on development. Let's see. We get to the part where you want to flagellates and colonial organisms share some genes with animals, but no fossil, experimental, or observed evidence demonstrates how single cells became coordinated multicellular organisms. And there again, I mentioned it yesterday or the day before, whenever we did stream, that we have a ton of molecular evidence about how things became multicellular. And that is the gene duplication and genome duplication. And basically all of these sticky proteins that get exuded from the cell and live in the extracellular matrix. And I probably have 500 papers on that alone. And we could get as deep as you want into it, but saying that we have no evidence, I mean, my goodness, no demonstrated evolutionary pathway. How do you demonstrate an evolutionary pathway? With AI becoming what it is, sometime within the next 20 to 50 years, we are going to be able to demonstrate this stuff. We're going to be able to do it in that much detail, I believe.
Well, it all depends on what information we are able to gather. And maybe the question is being asked in a way, once again, as to raise some sort of cloud of suspicion on evolutionary science. When evolutionary science, it collects data and then develops models to put the data in perspective and explain how it could have happened. And sometimes how it could have happened with the best evidence available is the best we're going to get. But once again, what point is this person trying to make? Are they trying to say, oh, evolution bad and it don't work and it's wrong? Or is he really just trying to say creationism is what you should be paying attention to, even though there's no evidence for creationism? Creationism is basically it's just kind of an offshoot of theology. Creation should have been this way. The past should have been this way because the Bible says this, this, and this.
Yeah, it's not only what he believes, but for some reason, these people are so threatened by evolution because they've got their minds wrapped around this young earth creationism and this Genesis story that their faith would be threatened. They have no other reason to believe in God other than believing that evolution is false. So they're desperate as hell to put out this misinformation. And they think that evolution somehow disproves Christianity, and it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It has nothing to do with that. Kind of crazy. I'm putting out Professor Dave's link in my chat or my description. Okay, so we got that Cretan. It's in my description in case anybody wants a link to it. Let's see. Okay. Complex animals with eyes, nervous systems, and specialized organs appear abruptly in the Cambrian. No, they don't. The neurons in the Ediacaran were already there, dude. And no, nothing appeared abruptly. That isn't what happens. What appeared abruptly was some various new experiments in developmental forms. Those were abrupt. The neurons and all the basic mechanisms for cell membranes and all of that were already intact and probably intact for like 1 billion years. They were 1 billion years coming. So simpler Ediacaran life that preceded them, no scientific evidence demonstrates how it was just a misunderstanding of how science works. Ediacaran organisms give rise to complex animal body plans that appear suddenly. So he's just regurgitating the same thing. Science doesn't get credit for evidence it might produce in the future. Yeah, that's true. We have the evidence now, dude. That's promissory materialism. We'll figure it out eventually.
Well,
more biological. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying what he's saying there. Somewhere along the line, we probably said, we'll learn more in the future, and he's trying to, I guess, practice using nice big words like that. But
right.
What we're saying is we have enough evidence to be confident about the future. We have actual physical evidence from the Ediacaran, from the Cambrian, and the creationists, young Earth creationists, or whoever wants to make the claim that, of course, once again, the guy doesn't really say what claim he's making. He's just trying to poo-poo the theory of evolution. But he has nothing but storybook characters to rely on.
And he's missing
no evidence, no physical evidence that supports a creationist point of view. And so, okay, I'll be confident about stuff that was based on evidence. I'll be more confident about something that has worked and proved fruitful in gathering knowledge. And I'll say, yeah, they're going to make some good, impressive discoveries. How do I know that? Well, every day of the week, I hear from people like Anton Petrov and other science communicators about great things that are being discovered, or new questions that are being raised, about science having to pertain to evolution or cosmology or astronomy. And that gives you confidence that things will be discovered and things will be known better in the future. So I don't know where they think that we're taking a faith position. We're just looking at the reality that we can see from the past and saying, okay, yeah, it looks like it's going to continue. We don't need a revelation to tell us what happened in the past. We can dig it out of the ground and take our measurements and deduce it or induce it, I guess, ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. More biological novelty appeared in the 20 million Cambrian years than in the prior 3+ billion years combined. That is patently false. The amount of diversification of those single-celled organisms prior to multicellularity was astronomical. I mean, the diversification was intense. There's horizontal gene transfer. There was what is it?
Genetic drift?
No, symbiogenesis. They call it, can't think of the word, symbiogenesis, basically where one cell basically ends up inside another cell, mitochondria, chloroplasts, and things like that. I mean, this stuff was going, it was crazy. And the amount of protein evolution that was happening was also unbelievable. So there were all of these different families. So by the time we poured into multicellularity, we had just trillions of different combinations of things that either worked or they didn't. And this was just a tremendous plus, because of all of those multicellular animals that weren't competing, basically, they were just creating biomass, and it was all dropping to the bottom of the ocean. There was just an unbelievable amount of food for all of these things to start developing all these different body plans. And the whole thing just exploded once multicellularity found those pathways for diversification.
Was the word you were looking for endosymbiosis?
Endosymbiosis, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
Well, now I won't be
anyway
tonight wondering what the word was.
Yep. So that's all we got there. What else we got? Oh no, we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want to do that. Where are we here?
I think looking back, whenever somebody starts dribbling stuff out into the live chat like that, probably just need to stop and say, what point are you trying to make?
Yeah, I'd love him to come and tell me what point he's trying to make, basically. So this here is, what do we got? Where are we at the beginning? Oh my God, the beginning is way up there. It's way up there. I don't know. Okay, so the next book is Principles of Development by Wolpert and Tickle. And then there's another one by Barisi that has a different structure, but it all has a great deal of stuff. And these are things that lead you to an understanding of what is going on. And then we have, okay. So I talked to ChatGPT a little bit about it, about his comments. Let's see, blunt summary. The evidence base is there. The real argument is not no evidence, but how much can be assigned confidently to STEM versus Crown groups, and how continuous is the transition across the Ediacaran Cambrian boundary. Pulling a book list. Let's see. Yeah, we don't have a perfectly smooth movie-like fossil sequence, but we will, because AI now is capable. We're going to be able to create these cell models. I wish I was a young man right now as a programmer, because this is going to be the next big video game is life basically evolving. And we're going to be able to show it in models, and we can show it right down to the molecular level. Okay, let's see. You want to get into this? Quick etymology. Ediacaran comes from the Ediacaran Hills. What we actually do know. Fossils already shows that large multicellular organisms. Here we go. Okay. Radiomorphs and other distinctive Ediacaran forms, tubular fossils. Okay. The fossil record already shows large multicellular organisms in the Ediacaran, ecological structuring, rangeomorphs, and other distinctive Ediacaran forms, probable animals in at least some cases tubular forms such as Claudina, and a growing trace fossil record indicating mobile organisms with increasingly complex behaviors. So all of these things led to what they're calling the Cambrian explosion, which I think was mostly bony animals getting a better record than these mushy things did. Mush is hard to fossilize. So anyway.
It's hard to make an impression in the fossil record if you don't have bones.
Yeah.
Or shells.
Yep. Anyway, you just go have a talk with ChatGPT. Now, I'm going to try a new AI and see if I can go in cold and pretend I'm a religious person and see if I can get a different angle, because I want to criticize these ideas, sort of. STEM group, mostly mosaic, a lot of anti-evolution rhetoric still talks as though paleontologists expect modern phyla to appear as neat finished packages. Now, that's the other thing. They think that these body plans were complete in the Cambrian, and they weren't. They were just getting rolling. And that's how we ended up with this progression of larger and larger dinos and things like that. So anyway, what else got? Oh, so I had a long talk, and we got some books, and then I got down to the bottom here. Now, let's see. So these complex lineages locking in is something that we can do in another stream. I think we're about done here. Unless I want you to comment. What do you have to say to this, man?
I think it would be interesting to hear them tell them what their point is. Tell us what their point is. What they're trying to do. They're just trying to tear down the theory of evolution. Well, if so, you need to use accurate information. Don't rely on Casey Luskin's unqualified opinion. Use sources. Use scientific sources. If you think a creationist has a good paper on the topic, bring that up so that we can actually look at what you're saying, not just what you're trying to criticize.
What is Pi Rosetta, Cretan? Pi Rosetta, is that Python? Python? What are these gamers that are cutting their teeth on doing these physical game engines? Again, I'm lacking a word. What is it? Oh my God. Anyway, when you develop a game, you have to have an engine that represents bouncing balls and things running into one another. Huh?
A physics engine.
Physics engine. Okay. Anyway, so these physics engines for cells are going to become very important. And I tried to develop them in Python, and it got so complicated so fast that I never managed to complete my project. But
here's what Copilot says. Pi Rosetta is an interactive Python-based interface to the Rosetta molecular modeling suite, letting you write custom algorithms for protein folding, design, and structural prediction.
Cool. And Evo 2? Evo 2 is the other one. I have to look this up. Python has everything. God, Python is fantastic. Anyway.
There's a lot of people using it, and you can pile package upon package, in any combination to suit your needs.
Right. Okay, so one takeaway I would like everybody to remember from this stream, if you've gotten this far, is to remember that a caterpillar turning into a butterfly is one kind turning into another. And if that can happen with just epigenetic changes, it can also happen with changes to the genome. So there is evolution right in front of our eyes, basically. That's all you have to do is understand what happens to that caterpillar, which is an amazing fucking story. So, which, we could spend the next 5 years on. But I'm done.
You're done for, huh?
I'm done for.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable amount of time.
Oh, the other takeaway is I'd like people to keep your eye out for these people that think they know enough to understand everything. To understand, like when you have a creationist talking to an evolutionist, and the creationist, basically like, you just have faith that evolution works. So the creationist is claiming that he understands the knowledge base of the person that has studied evolution. And it's this weird habit we have of, like, if we know we don't know enough about a subject to understand how big the subject is and how much there is to learn, we tend to think that other people are the same way. So they actually think that all of these evolutionary biologists are just getting together and saying, well, we know what happened because we're atheists, and, we're not going to, we know what happened, even though we don't know how it happened. No, they fucking know how it happened.
I think it's even worse. They get their information from the disinformation deacons, of young Earth creationism. So they read more and more creationist stuff. They go to creationist sermons because that's what they are, and then they think, I know everything there is to know about evolution, when they don't realize that these people are not twisting what is out there and not even talking about an eighth of what's out there.
Yeah.
In terms of things to know.
Yep.
Maybe reading a few books on evolution, a few surveys or introductions from a wide variety of sources would probably be the best thing to do.
Yes. Okay. I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready to end this stream. It was good seeing the people out in the live chat and interacting with you. Thanks for being here.
So if it isn't too painful, maybe we could talk more about the cellular basis of developmental biology a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll do another 1 hour stream and, end it there. That's pretty much where my brain ends anyway. So anyway. Never let him say I did my own research, reading Google and research. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The thing is, and Brandon Hendrickson and I and Scott and I are going to talk about this subject a little later. Brandon Hendrickson runs an educational business for basically secular science for homeschool children, which is exactly in opposition to Answers in Genesis. And we're going to talk a little bit about this this business of coming to understand how all of this stuff works, and some of the ways that we can deal with creationists and understand how they're thinking, that sort of thing. Anyway, and I lost my train of thought because I gotta go. Okay.
Well, say
Yep.
good night, Gracie.
Okay, goodbye, cruel world.
Goodbye.